easier. It would be cheaper just to
Okay.
right?
That is a man caught on camera allegedly trying to hire a hitman to kill a minor that deputies say he forced into a sex slave contract. But this suspect was actually speaking to an undercover investigator, and not only that, Florida deputies say they also have video of the suspect dumping electronics off a bridge. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We have some shocking video of a man who appears ready to do whatever it takes to silence a woman who was a minor when he allegedly had sex with her before she would testify against him. This is Andrew Mustapick on Facebook. He looks like a normal guy who likes skiing. He lives in Indian River County, Florida. But he's now facing 2 counts of soliciting another to tamper with a victim because of what deputies say went down this month. Police say he put tens of thousands of dollars down as a deposit to pay someone he thought was a hitman to kill a woman he allegedly had sexual contact with when she was a minor starting in 2020. Here's part of the conversation he allegedly had with the hitman, who is actually an undercover deputy.
I mean, if you're saying 20 and another 25 just takes
25 and 25? You total of 70?
right? It'd be cheaper just
Deputies first came in contact with Andrew Mustapick all the way back in 2021 when the alleged target of this murder for hire effort came forward. The woman claimed she was 17 at the time she met Mustapick through a friend of hers who was 19. She told deputies that Mustapick had agreed to buy her friend a car in exchange for sexual favors. The victim says her friend didn't want to engage in those favors with a 65-year-old man, but the then 17-year-old did. I want you to look at these court records. You can read it right here on your screen. It shows that the victim claimed that Mustapick forced her to sign a contract that had a clause that she be his sex slave twice a week for the next 5 years. This is in exchange for a car. The contract also allegedly had details saying that the victim had to spend hours with Mustapick and there were specific sexual favors that she had to perform on this 65-year-old man. She also said that Mustapick eventually took the car away because he felt the contract was not being followed. The victim allegedly provided graphic videos to deputies showing her doing sex acts with Mustapick. This case, those details certainly are disturbing. But this was a case, according to deputies and the court records we reviewed, that was set to be resolved in just weeks. In January of this year, Mustapick agreed to plead no contest in that case, and you can see in court this transcript showing that he understood his plea by saying, "I do." Deputies say he was going to serve 1 year in prison and then have 10 years of sex offender probation, and the sheriff said it was likely with good behavior in prison that Mustapick would have only spent around 8 months in prison. Court records show that Mustapick is officially set to be sentenced on June 6th of this year in that case. Now, it's unclear how or what deputies say just happened will impact that case, but let's lay it out. Even though Mustapick had signed that no contest plea, deputies say behind the scenes he was allegedly planning something sinister. The Indian River County Sheriff says a family member came forward in March of this year and told law enforcement that Mustapick was looking to hire a hitman. The sheriff didn't say who the family member was, but called them a hero. Here's more of what the sheriff said per local media outlet Sebastian Daily.
A family member comes forward and says he's trying to hire someone to kill the victim in this case, that he wants to pay someone to kill this victim.
The sheriff says that Mustapick initially went back and forth between wanting to allegedly have the victim killed or just forcing her not to testify. The sheriff then says they brought in an out-of-town undercover officer to play the role of hitman. The Indian River County Sheriff's Office gave us a 23-second video showing Andrew Mustapick talking with who he thinks is a hitman.
easier. It would be cheaper just
Okay.
right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're saying 20 and another 25 just takes
25 and 25? You total of 70?
right? It'd be cheaper just
Here's the sheriff's reaction after playing that video in a news conference per Sebastian Daly.
This guy is an absolute animal. He's, over 8 months that he's going to spend in prison, he's willing to have somebody bumped off. He's willing to spend $100,000 to take somebody that he doesn't even know and do this.
I want to take a moment and talk about something that is really important, and that is getting quality sleep. It's so difficult for many of us. We work, we have families. For me, working at Law&Crime, we work some long days, we work some busy days. I'm also a dad, so when the work day is done, it gets pretty busy at home at night as well. So when it's time to go to sleep, I want to make sure I get quality rest. One of my colleagues here at Law&Crime said I should try Dream by Beam, and it's really been a game changer because I wanted something that would help me fall asleep quickly at night, but I don't want to wake up in the morning feeling groggy. Now I've been drinking Dream regularly before I go to bed, and I've been falling asleep quicker, and I wake up feeling refreshed. That means I got more energy to be on air and more energy at home. Sometimes I used to toss and turn at night. You might deal with this as well, where you feel tired, but your brain is still racing, and now 30 minutes after I take Dream, I'm ready to go to sleep. It's super easy to make. Take some warm water or some milk, pour in a scoop, mix it up, and sip on it before you go to sleep. I'm not the only one who's benefited from Dream. It's helped 17.5 million people get a better night's sleep. The ingredients, they are clinically shown to improve sleep. It's also vegan, gluten-free, and only 15 calories. Plus, it tastes like hot chocolate, so you gotta love that part as well. So if you're struggling with sleep, just like I was, give Dream a try. Also use promo code CHRIS35. That will give you a special discount. You can scan this QR code on your screen. Also click the link in the description. The sheriff says that Mustapick gave the undercover $20,000 on top of a $20,000 payment that he was already putting forward. He then allegedly told the undercover if the victim still wanted to testify after intimidating her didn't work, he would pay another $50,000 to kill her. Now, here's the money the Indian River County Sheriff has in their possession as evidence in this case. Here's more from Sebastian Daly of the Indian River County Sheriff describing the evidence that they found.
He had a variety of bank envelopes where he's been pulling out this money, preparing for this, and money was seen inside the safe that he told he was prepared to pay to have this person killed.
But the list of evidence that sheriff's deputies say they have against Andrew Mustapick doesn't end there. The conversation between Mustapick and the undercover happened on May 1st. Deputies continued to follow Mustapick in the days after that. Less than a week after talking to the undercover, deputies say they filmed this video that they say is Mustapick on a bridge dumping a hard drive and parts of a laptop into the water below. Those items were recovered by a dive team after he left, according to deputies. And here are images that we received from the Indian River County Sheriff of those items which were found in the St. Lucie River. Deputies also searched Mustapick's house. They say they found the rest of the laptop he allegedly tried to ditch in the water. As I zoom in on this image, you can see in the dumpster, there's the parts of the laptop right there. Police arrested Mustapick on 2 counts of soliciting another to tamper with the victim, and in that case, he is being held on $7 million bond. But even if he was able to post that amount, he still would not be able to get out of jail because the sheriff says that Mustapick's bond in his 2021 sexual contact with a minor case has now been revoked. Joining us now to talk more about this case is Detective Eric Barnes. Always great to have you on Law&Crime. Thanks for being here. You've worked murder for hire cases before. When you see this video of the suspect in this case, in his own words, saying that it would be cheaper to potentially kill this person who is going to testify against him, the victim in this case, I mean, what stands out to you?
I think it's just very, very authentic. You know, when someone's own words come out, it's kind of, there's no guessing involved. There's no kind of questioning intent. It's plain and straightforward. You know, he wants them dead.
Yeah, because you hear him say it, and then I think, you know, if this was to be put forward in court, that'd be pretty damning for a jury to hear that. And he's already facing some, he was already going to go to prison on this sexual contact with a minor case that he was dealing with. What other pieces of evidence, though, would you need? Or is that really the smoking gun, for lack of a better term, that could eventually convict him in a murder for hire case?
I think the majority of the weight of the evidence is going to be on that video. I mean, it's clear. It's definitely him. So there's no identification issues. There's no law enforcement versus defendant. This is clear cut. It's what he wanted done, and the motive is laid out. He's trying to preserve himself and keep himself out of prison.
Now, this case, it was apparently a family member. They're not identifying who that may be, but in the last couple of months, a family member came forward to law enforcement and said they believe that Andrew Mustapick, this suspect, was looking to either hurt or kill the main victim in this 2021 sexual contact with a minor case. In your experience, how is it typically that law enforcement gets word that someone's looking to hire a hitman?
Typically, law enforcement will get tips either through a tip line that's already pre-established that goes through voicemail recording service, or now they have it set up where it's electronic. And sometimes there will be people also willing to walk into stations and actually do a face-to-face so they can remain anonymous.
And when you get that type of information, how does the process start of making contact with the suspect to get them to believe that they're actually talking with someone who does this for a living?
Typically, law enforcement will have to do a deep dive and just kind of research, figure out. You're going to look for a few points that you can take from your tip to actually verify that the information is credible. And then you start doing a deep dive and trying to figure out who it is that you're actually going to make contact with, because that will help law enforcement psychologically prepare for any kind of communications they have with them.
How are you able to make contact with someone who may have the intent that this is what they want to do, but to actually believe that they're speaking to a hitman and not a member of law enforcement?
I think that typically the what law enforcement is able to accomplish in situations like this is just you actually play on the, I guess, the person is solicitor, play on their emotions. I think that once you come across, if they're able to actually sell themselves as not being a cop and get that confidence from them, I think you actually use their desperation against them. You know that obviously in the video you're able to tell that he was so motivated to get this person killed that it actually backfired on him. And so sometimes you're able to look past something that may be a clue in order to get it done and get it taken care of.
Yeah, because he seems very authentic. It seems like he has this immediate trust with this undercover investigator who he actually thinks is a hitman. And one question I had watching that, and I've covered a couple stories that have to do with people reaching out to who they think are contract killers, but then they end up being members of law enforcement, and kind of lack for a way to dress up this question. I mean, do hitmen actually exist? I mean, is there someone out there, if someone wants to get rid of someone, that they can actually find a person who does this for a living, who kills people, and then is able to cover it up in a way that law enforcement wouldn't be able to know?
Honestly, I honestly don't think that we have that many individuals that are willing to do this. That's why I think that law enforcement is also successful with making these encounters, because if you say no to this undercover officer, then who's up next? And so I think that if there was a long list of willing candidates, then we wouldn't see so many cases being made by undercovers. But I don't think that there's that many people willing to risk spending the rest of their life in prison for someone else.
Right. It's just every time we see this, it seems like it's an undercover. And clearly that's why we're talking about it, because these are cases that come forward and they get in the news because it's an undercover. But I was, in the movies, hitmen exist, but in real life, is there that person you can reach out to, give $20,000 in cash, and then suddenly they take care of what you think is a problem? Hard to say. Why is it important? Police have the tens of thousands of dollars that he was willing to pay to allegedly kill this victim. Why is it important to have that evidence along with the video of him on camera saying that he wants this person killed?
Well, I think the actually having the cash is what we call an act in furtherance. So it's actual tangible proof that he was willing to carry this plan through, and he just wasn't having a bad day and just verbalizing some thoughts that he may have been having. He actually had the cash and the means to carry this out. So I think that that is a large piece of evidence in this investigation, and it's going to go a long way into showing the jury that he was ready to actually commit this murder.
One thing I noticed just in watching the videos, it seems like it was like glasses that had a camera on it that the undercover was using because they're speaking at eye level. What typically are the tools that you have to be able to record these types of conversations?
I don't. I don't know what they use in the video. It could be glasses. I don't know. But there's all different types of technology that law enforcement uses to conduct these investigations. And typically those things are very, they're kept close to the vest.
Yeah, because I imagine that those glasses had to look very realistic if you're playing up this part. For the investigator's point of view, if you go undercover in a case like this, I mean, what is the role of a hitman that you're trying to play? What are some of the things that are going through your mind as you're having this conversation with someone who you believe actually wants to hire a hitman?
Ultimately what you're doing in an undercover role, you're selling yourself, and you're having to play a character. And so you have to walk like a hitman, you have to talk like a hitman, and you have to conduct yourself like a hitman, because every movement you make is being judged. And the person you're selling yourself to is trying to make a split-second determination. And if something seems off, then you're actually working against yourself. So you actually have to get into the character that you're selling yourself to be. And even though you may be disgusted by the person you're dealing with, for that time, you have to make him a friend.
Yeah, I mean, mentally, how do you prepare for that? Because it's one thing to be an actor and to portray a certain role, but you are speaking with someone who would hire someone for murder, solicitate someone for murder to do it. I mean, how long does it take to prepare to go into a mission like this?
Well, obviously, it's different skill levels amongst undercover officers, but I think that the longer someone has been doing undercover, it becomes second nature. And I think in this case, since particularly with dealing with someone on a murder for hire case, there's a definite level of danger that you're dealing with, because if this individual finds out that you're an undercover officer, at that point your cover's blown and you have to do what you need to do to survive. So if this guy's willing to kill someone to keep himself out of prison, what does he do when he finds out he's dealing with an undercover? So even with the risk, I think that the undercover maintains that the world will be a lot better place. So for a few minutes, if I have to act like a dirtbag, that's what I'm willing to do to get this guy in custody.
And it seemed like, I mean, we only got from law enforcement, it's about a 30-second clip of the conversation that this undercover had. And you have that moment where Andrew Mustapick is on camera saying that it would be cheaper to kill this person. But it seems that they were able to build at least a level of trust with him that he would confide that in that person. When you look at the profile of people who typically are caught in these murder for hire situations, someone who actually wants to go hire a hitman, in this case, he was about to go spend roughly 8 to 12 months in prison and then be on a sex offender list, sex offender probation for 10 years. What's typically the profile of someone who tries to hire a hitman?
I think ultimate desperation is set in. I think it's been a bunch of time where someone has contemplated over and over different ways to kind of get out of the situation. And I think that for most people, death is kind of like the last result. And so I think that once the level of desperation sets in, they come to terms and grips that this is the only way and the easiest way for them to get out of the situation. And so I think that that's what pushes them.
And then for the undercover in this situation, clearly you have the moment that he says that it would be cheaper to kill somebody. But what is going through your mind as far as a checklist of what you might need in a criminal case to get this person to say, as you're having this conversation with them, beyond just clearly that headline moment that he says it would be cheaper to kill her? But what are some of the other things that you would be looking for to see this person say as you build a case against them?
At that moment, when he makes a statement that it'd be cheaper just to have her killed, you want to get him to talk about that a little bit more, to actually pull out more of the planning process and see how far he's willing to go. And so you want to make sure that you get enough on tape of him talking about it. And it's not just a defense that law enforcement kind of set this thing up and it's an entrapment type of scenario. You want the words to come out of his mouth.
Because then it kind of goes to the experience that I'm sure you have to have as an undercover, where you don't want Andrew Mustapick in this case to suddenly be like, why are you asking so many questions about this particular part if I'm offering you the money? How do you handle that conversation where you don't blow your cover?
I think it's a balancing act. Again, you're selling yourself and you're playing this ultimate character of a hitman. And, typically if you're the guy that's going to go commit the murder, you also don't want to verbalize too much. But you have to also gain the confidence of the person that's hiring you. So I think that you have a few questions that you can ask in order to get to build a trust and kind of develop the relationship. Because at the end of the day, if I'm able to go and pull off this murder for you, you also have to believe that if I get caught, that I'm not going to say anything. So I think it's a give and kind of a give and give situation on both ends.
And kind of going into the role that you have to play once again, I imagine too, I mean, the level of danger that you may be in, because you don't, I mean, if he's willing to hire a hitman to kill somebody, who knows if he himself is armed as well. I mean, what are some of the safety precautions that you have to take as an undercover in that situation? Because you are very exposed to someone who is allegedly willing to do some pretty bad things.
You know, in the undercover world, typically undercovers will have cover teams that are close by in the event something goes bad. But in the time leading up to that, as an undercover, you have to make sure that you find as many exits as you can out the residence, or if you're in a vehicle, you have to come up with your own safety plan, because you just never know how long it's going to take for your cover team to get there. But you have to plan for every step carefully in case something does backfire, and you always plan for the worst case scenario.
Absolutely. I mean, what type of training goes into being an undercover officer?
Typically, undercover officers will go through scenarios where they work on their cover stories. They also work on training with in the event a rescue is needed, and also being able to defend themselves in the event that their cover is exposed.
How, like typically in say a murder for hire case, are you is this, I guess this situation, I mean, are you looking for someone who is a more experienced person? Is this on kind of the far end of the level of skill it takes as far as being an undercover officer?
Yes, I would say that ultimately that doing a murder for hire undercover case is definitely, you want to go with a seasoned veteran undercover officer, because this is ultimate ultimate exposure. You know, if you go in and you blow the deal somehow, even if the guy doesn't know that you're an undercover, but he doesn't trust you and the deal doesn't go through, now you run the risk of someone possibly losing their life if you don't make the deal happen. Because you want to gain his confidence, you want to gain his trust, and you want him to conduct that deal through you. So you have to go in and ultimately sell yourself to this guy and make him
Yeah.
believe that not only are you trustworthy, but that you can get the job done.
And then just lastly, as you've, I'm sure, seen undercover videos of people in these murder for hire cases, I mean, how does this one compare in terms of the evidence that an undercover was able to get from Andrew Mustapick?
Man, I take my hat off to this undercover. The fact that he was able to put his own personal being, things that are important to him, on the back burner, his livelihood, his family, his career, and you put those things in the back burner for a few minutes to go in a room with someone who's willing to kill at the drop of a dime. You know, I take my hat off to him, and I think that the work that he did and the stuff that he was able to accomplish while he was in the room with him, the recording and actually capturing the money, I think that will go a long way in securing a conviction.
Yeah, and to think that, you know, for Andrew Mustapick, he was pleading no contest and would have spent likely less than a year behind bars. Obviously, would have been a sex offender probation, but now going to be facing some very serious prison time with what he is now alleged to have done in this solicitation murder for hire plot. Detective Eric Barnes, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for your expertise.
Thank you.
For On the Case, presented by Law and Crime, I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.